grab your butt flaps and your bowling pin hats. You are listening to Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents, to Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau.
Tangent cube of science. There's a couple of snakes in there.
You got a couple of snakes in that tangent cube there. So, as always, well, this week we actually do have the Watcher back with us. So come on, buddy. How you doing? You were sick? What was the deal? You back with us now? You get to listen to the last episode?
Did you get the space flu?
Yeah, you got the space flu?
Yeah, the space flu. So space stations, much like Earth, are constantly bombarded with space viruses. And I caught one of those.
Ah. That's terrible.
Oh, man, did it punch you in the space jeans?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so we got some good emails, got some responses from the last episode, and the Watcher was able to catch up listening to the last episode as well. So we are going to continue some of that theme this week on the Great Pyramid and the actual rabbit holes that are in it. Those shafts are actual rabbit holes.
They are rabbit holes.
They are actually rabbit holes in the Great Pyramid. But first,
why four?
Why four? As always, we have space weather news. Solar wind approaches the Earth. A stream of solar wind is about to hit Earth's magnetic field. Estimated time of arrival, February 20th. The gaseous material is flowing from a trans-equatorial fissure in the sun's atmosphere. Arctic skywatchers can expect minor geomagnetic storms and auroras mixed with bright moonlight when the fast-moving stream arrives. And also Mercury at sunset. Tonight, right after the sun goes down, step outside and look west into the sunset. Mercury is returning to the evening sky. This picture was taken of the innermost planet shining just above the 32-meter radio telescope at the Turin Center for Astronomy. And I will put this picture in the show notes. Mercury is normally overwhelmed by the sun, but as February comes to a close, Mercury is emerging from the glare. The view will improve every night for the rest of the month as the planet climbs higher in the sunset sky, reaching a maximum elongation or distance from the sun of 18 degrees on February the 27th and 28th. The best time to look is 30 to 45 minutes after sunset. Mercury often has a pink or orange hue as it is filtered by the same low atmosphere that gives the sunset its colors. Scanning the horizon with binoculars can help you locate it. Once found, Mercury is easy to see with the unaided eye.
Sweet.
And one more, super snow moon. There's a full moon tonight, the biggest and brightest of 2019. According to folklore, it is the snow moon. According to science, it is a super snow moon, inflated in size and luminosity because it occurs on the near side of the moon's orbit. Full moons vary in size because the moon's orbit is not a circle, it's an ellipse. One side of the moon's orbit, called perigee, is 50,000 kilometers closer to the Earth than the other side, apogee. Today's supermoon becomes full just 6 hours away from perigee, a coincidence that makes it almost 8% wider and 16% brighter than the average full moon. So that is all from spaceweather.com, where we get all our space weather news.
You fellas up north ought to go out and look at the sky tonight. That's terrible at that.
We'll get better.
I gotta get to work on it.
Yeah.
Go out.
That's a good way to die. You go out at the sky at night in the north, yeah. All right. So I have an email from the Grand Watcher about the last episode. He titled it,
You're wrong.
He titled it, Why For?
Why for?
1. The Y4 was a very popular and talented rock band that played the Northeast Wisconsin area when I was in my late teens and early 20s. 2. This entire episode got me thinking, what is it about those of us who explore? His wife he says, my wife repeatedly asked me why I care about such useless information. What possible difference can it make in your life? What would change? I realized that I don't know. I am just driven to find out the answers to these mysteries. As you know, in my case, it's aliens. But I hung on each word while you read, anxiously awaiting a new clue. Why? Why are only certain of us explorers and or scientists, especially when theory overrides fact? What if all these shaft changes were really just fuck-ups? The chambers weren't for religious purposes or burial, so sometimes maybe they just said, fuck it, it's close enough.
That's great. I love that question.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I don't know.
I realized that I don't know. The Watcher says that voice from my mom was perfect. Thank you, Watcher. I have spent many hours talking to your mom. I know how to do her voice. I can totally see her asking that.
I think it's really cool, though, that there are just certain people that just wonder endlessly about these things that most people don't care about at all.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny, and this is why, at the same time, we like to make fun of nerds while being nerds.
Yeah.
Like, we call ourselves nerds, but we're all, we like to make fun of nerds because they care about useless information.
Yeah.
We always try to find a use for it, though.
Right. Well, that's the thing about science, isn't it? That like, it always pays off in the end.
Yeah.
Even what you call like pure research has no conceivable, somebody's going to do research and has no conceivable profitable
purpose,
profitable thing.
And then out pops Velcro.
That's right.
And microwaves.
Liposuction.
So you never know.
A little Men in Black lingo there for you guys.
The the mystery of the shafts may lead us to an incredibly new power plant.
That's right.
Who knows? It may just satisfy our curiosity to find out all the details about them.
That's true. All right, so still on the line of space weather news. This is just a news story that I saw this week. Police release footage of UFO during storm. Also aliens. Grand Watcher, right? This is your deal here. It's your shtick. A video recording of a strange light in the sky over Australia was posted online this week by Broome Police. The footage, which was recorded in Kimberley District, Western Australia during a thunderstorm, shows an illuminated circular object that briefly appears in the sky, moves, and then fades away. After reviewing CCTV at Town Beach of last night's storm, it appears we were not alone, officers with the Western Australia Police Force wrote on Facebook. But could this really be an otherworld visitor? Or is something else going on? If you look closely at the bottom right of the frame, you can see a car moving off in perfect sync with the light in the sky. It is likely that the UFO is actually the lens flare from the car's headlights.
Of course.
Right. That's a pretty cool picture, though. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, what do you guys think? Are we alone?
I don't think we're alone.
No, I don't think we're alone.
There's a couple ways I don't think we're alone. One is I don't think we're alone in the sense that there are possibly other beings around that are either non-physical, but or in some physical manner that we don't understand, that interact strangely in ways that we don't understand.
Right.
So, in other words, spirits.
Yeah.
And I also think we are not alone in the sense that there are life forms around our area of space, like those little jellyfish things, the horseshoe crab things that are swimming around in
space crabs.
Space crabs, that say live in the high upper atmosphere of Earth or just outside of the what is classified as the atmosphere of the Earth.
Yeah.
Maybe live within the magnetic field of the Earth or something like that.
Right. Live in the orbital area they call microgravity, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's possible.
Low Earth orbit. Yeah. And why not?
And I think it's also possible that there may be other hominid types like longheads.
Yes.
So we're not alone in that sense. And then in the larger universe scheme of things, I think it's highly probable that there is another intelligent form of consciousness or life form out there elsewhere in the universe. Whether or not they've been visiting us in the past is debatable.
Right.
And seems to me the probability for that is extremely low. But
Oh, yeah?
I mean, just strictly in terms of probability, based on distances and all of
what
that
we
stuff.
know about physics.
Yeah. So I mean, there could be other ways of space travel. Why would they come here and then hide themselves? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Prime directive.
The prime directive could be that. No, I just think that the probability of that is lower, much lower.
Yeah. Well, the probability that we've been visited is definitely lower than the probability of them existing in the first place.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So, to
sure.
answer the question, are we alone, is what I'm
Right.
saying.
Nope.
I definitely don't think we're alone in terms
Right.
of intelligent life in the universe. Are they cruising over here? You know, have our
Yeah.
neighbors come to visit us?
Right.
Are we alone in the sense that our neighbors haven't come close to our house?
Can we borrow some sugar?
I need your gold, your metals, and your atmosphere. And your Coors Light.
And your Coors Light.
Give me all your beers and smokes technologies.
Oh man, we're gonna have to post that video sometime.
Yeah.
Beers and Smokes Technologies video. God.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with that. I think that I think that I really like the idea of paleo contact, but there's just no way of knowing what we're really looking at. When,
Yeah.
You know, like I've always thought that the evidence for some kind of visitation of some sort was high, but the more you look into it, the more you realize that they could be talking about people that are from Earth. They just don't know it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Other hominids or...
So that's what I'm saying. I tend to lean towards what's more probable in my mind.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not totally discounting the possibility that we were visited by intelligent beings from another planet,
Yeah.
or that even, let's just take the idea of evolution, you know, and say well, it's totally true.
Okay.
This is how it works.
Yeah.
It seems probable that the evolution on multiple planets in a planetary system would be similar because they would be sharing stuff all the time from asteroidal impacts and
Right.
all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. They're sharing bits and fragments of the viruses and the microbiology and everything that can survive the travel of space to then later develop into similar DNA structured beings. So
Right.
there could be like the Anunnaki type people that come from a similar planet that's in the system somewhere.
Yeah. If there was a progenitor world, like the
Right.
Sumerian story of Tiamat,
Right.
was the mother of life, was destroyed, but then all life that forms on other planets later on comes from fragments of her.
Right. She was
Yes.
exploded and she's in the asteroid belt and,
Yes.
and she's
The
pummeling
comets.
everybody.
Pieces of her oceans are the comets.
Yep.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
So that you could end up in a scenario where you got these Anunnaki, you know, large, you know, giant type people who live extremely long lives on their quite different atmosphere and planetary, you know, orbit system that come here and then like, you know, merge their DNA or do some DNA editing of the hominids on this planet to sort of make people like us.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But
Or even Mars, like.
yeah, I just tend to believe the probable idea is that you know, the paleo contact was really, you know, advanced beings on Earth that were traveling to other areas of Earth with less advanced beings on
Right.
it.
Coming out of the sky and making them think that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the fact that we've lost so much in translation that, like, I keep going back to this idea that the word God,
Yeah.
like, where does it even come from? Like, it could have just been what they called themselves, this particular civilization.
Right.
Just like we call ourselves Americans or humans.
Right.
You know, that's the English word for what we call ourselves, right?
Yeah.
If there was some breakaway civilization or something that, you know, living under the ice sheets in Antarctica that hasn't come out or whatever for so long, they finally come, they're ridiculously technologically advanced, and then they show up and say, we are the you know, it's like
that word becomes
like, yes, these people, those things that have the badass technology and are huge,
right?
You know, whatever they are.
Yeah. We worship
and Bob.
We worship the Rapuble.
The Rapuble. And they show up in a worship.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And basically command you to do what they want.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of a breakaway civilization of some kind. I mean, why should this be limited to this time period too?
Right.
The
breakaway civilization could have left Earth
Yeah.
thousands of years ago.
Or that the Viracochas, so to speak, of the ancient world were the remnants of a breakaway civilization that came out and tried to reestablish the technological or just reboot civilization after a cataclysm,
Right.
So
That's kind of what I end up thinking when you start to look at the case for catastrophes in the geologic record, in the archaeological record, in the I don't know what to call this, but the records of the writings.
Yeah.
I guess that's archaeological.
yeah,
They talk about all these destructions. So you start to put those things together and you see, well, maybe civilization goes back much further because our most recent, catastrophic destructive things seem to be taking place further back than what we see as the first civilization. But
Right.
they were all writing about all these destructive forces that were happening all
Yeah.
over the world. So perhaps those were legacies that came from longer ago than that.
Yeah.
And then it seems more probable that in that great antiquity, there would be areas of the world where there were completely, really people living in the Stone Age walking around in butt flaps,
Yes.
right? And then there would be other areas where technology could have been far advanced, and they sort of like we practice, like, well, let's not mess with the tribes over there in Brazil or
Right.
wherever they are.
Yeah.
In these jungles, let's not go try to.
or that one off the coast of India
Yeah.
where they try to kill anybody that comes on shore.
Right. I mean, we could just go in there with suits of freaking modern armor,
Right.
and just be like, okay, guys, I'm invincible to your arrows.
Yeah.
And you can't burn me with that torch.
Right. Right, but we don't because
And I don't know if I agree with that. I kind of think that that's kind of effed up.
that we don't talk to them.
That we don't. Yeah.
Well, the reason they all, as far as I could tell from the last time I was reading about this, the reason they try to kill anybody who comes on shore is because when it happened before, they had an epidemic of sicknesses that they didn't have to deal with. So the last time they were contacted, it wiped out a shitload of them, and now they now they think that we're cursed or something. Whatever they think, they just
Right.
they try to kill anybody that comes close because
But there is this sort of people think, and I've talked to some people that actually think this, like, oh yeah, we shouldn't. They live in this.
oh yeah, right, yeah.
And I start it's like people think that, well, we shouldn't really bother them. They're at one with nature. They're doing the whole teepee
Yeah.
and like living off the land thing, and it's beautiful, and they're not polluting and whatever.
Right.
And I strongly disagree with that. I'm like,
Yeah.
they're what is their what's their like average lifespan?
Yeah.
Probably in their 30s.
Right. What's their infant mortality rate?
What's their infant mortality rate? What when their babies get sick and die,
Yeah.
there's just nothing they can do. They live they have incredible hardship that you can't possibly imagine.
right.
Yes, they are trying to protect themselves by stabbing anybody that comes near them in a canoe
Yeah.
to preserve their way of life, but they don't know that their whole way of life could be preserved in a much greater way
Yeah.
by just medicine in general. Like
Yeah.
just take medical advances.
Right. Well, and there's the historical precedent of any less advanced civilization that comes into contact with a greater, more advanced, at least technological civilization ends up being mostly destroyed by it. But then you have to look at what do you mean by destroyed? You mean their way of life is totally changed? Yes.
Yeah, thank God. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to make that judgment call. I'm sure that just like we have in our civilization now, people who, long for the old days when things weren't as complicated.
Right.
So you've always got people like that.
Right. Well, we long for what we remember as the good stuff of the old days.
Right.
But not the fact that if you got the cold, you might just die.
Right. Yeah.
So here's another interesting argument to think about. What if there's something about those people that they are like something about maybe the way they think or something culturally inherited or even genetically inherited about their brains or something that they could like
revolutionize us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if we brought them into the 21st century, what if those people end up like designing the engines that can take us to the stars or curing cancer, et cetera, et cetera? Like you don't know. It's like look at what Japan was able to do in 50 years, right? Like would we want to say, well, we wanted to preserve their culture, so we didn't give them any,
Yeah, I agree. It's a two-way street, and it's there are ups and downs for everything. So it's a hard call to make, and I think that's why people just prefer to not make the call.
If it was my call, I would say, let's go in there with suits of armor and just like give them some technology to deal with.
Yeah.
Not attack any of them, but just go and like show them like we mean them no harm.
Yeah.
We're in like these suits. They can't harm us. We're humans.
Yeah.
We'll give them some stuff, and then we'll leave.
Yeah.
And we'll just keep doing it. And bring
and there's precedent for that. The cargo cults of the Pacific Islands. I mean, like those people wanted them to come back, tried to make them come back by building.
Yeah, or it would be an interesting study to say, how could we do this? Because we're going to need to learn how to approach hostile other civilizations. Like if we end up being a cosmic society, or civilization, we're going to need to learn how to approach hostile, intelligent beings.
Yeah.
Right? That are trying to preserve their way of life.
Yeah.
And perhaps, if we're more powerful than them, we still want to be able to get in there and to befriend them and show them we mean them no harm.
Yeah. We need to get good at that.
We need to get good at that.
Yeah.
And we've got a couple of ways we can test it without, if we did it right, if we had a group of scientists and things to do it right, to where we could be sure, say, we didn't spread diseases to them. Like, in other words, we're in hazmat suits and whatever.
Yeah.
And armor and stuff first. And like, let's take a blood sample and like, let's see what's going on. And
the Watcher says everyone remembers the work ethic of the 40s and 50s, but no one remembers how scary polio was.
Good point. Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, and if we showed up like that, we would look like we were wearing spacesuits.
Yeah.
And then we might see some drawings of us on caves.
Right. Wearing spacesuits.
Wearing spacesuits.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. In order to not infect them with whatever.
Very good point, Watcher.
Yeah. Yep.
Damn, you should be the host on this show.
Yeah, we need to get the Watcher live in the studio again. We did that once. We need to do it again.
Yeah. Except he can't look anything up out here with this crappy.
I know. It's a Watcherless Watcher program. It's like when you have the Watcher live.
Now we have 3 snakes in here that are going to be more wrong than ever. Okay, I have one news story before we get to this break. A beautiful disaster. Head injury reveals hidden talent. This is by I4 CBS Denver. A bang to the head changed a Colorado man's life by revealing a hidden talent. Doctors say pianist Derek Amato is one of the few people in the world to have experienced the rare phenomena called acquired savant syndrome. ASS. Sorry, that's my acronym, not theirs. He says the music is in his mind. He sees it in his head, and his fingers do the rest. Amato has a gift that came about in an unexpected way. 12 years ago, he had an accident in the swimming pool. I miscalculated diving in the shallow end and hit the bottom of the shallow end on this side of my head and damaged the back end, said Amato. After recovering from the accident, he was at a friend's house and walked over to a keyboard, and suddenly, without ever playing the piano before, he began playing and playing.
Wow.
The trauma to the head unlocked something unique inside Amato's brain. Acquired savant syndrome has been described in articles and studies as when a tragedy turns you into a genius.
Yeah.
At Classic Pianos on South Broadway in Denver, Amato told CBS 4's Rick Salinger that black and white squares appear in his mind when he's at the piano.
Whoa.
I just follow what the blocks tell me to do. I do my best to take those notes and put them into playing, said Amato. His talented arms are tattooed with musical notes, which he cannot comprehend. Reading music seems confusing for me. I tried to learn a couple of different times. He says despite not being able to read music, he's aware that he has been given a precious gift, and he tries to give back to those who have spent hard times on the streets of Denver, as he once did. So he was like homeless in Denver for a while or whatever, and now he has this skill, and he just like he's a badass piano player after he banged his head.
Yes.
So I wanted to test this in the tangent cube. Here, turn around.
Hit
you with this,
all right.
this cup here.
Okay.
Oh God! All right. Now, let's play this keyboard.
Nothing's happening.
You gotta play it right there where all these are.
Oh, yeah. Well, I definitely felt after you whacked me on the back of the head.
Oh, you gotta level up.
Yeah, yeah.
Acquired savant syndrome.
Acquired
Yes.
savant syndrome. Whacked on the back of the head, become a genius. Normally that's the other way around. But that reminded me, that story when you were reading it, reminded me of like, I spent a while looking into, there's a whole category of medical anomalies along those lines of people who received major head injuries and then strange things happened. Entire personalities change, There's one guy, I can't remember the exact details, but one guy got he had a metal pole basically went through his skull, and it didn't kill him. The watch says Phineas Gage. The dude completely was a totally different person. Rail worker in the 1800s, the watcher says, and major head injury, like should have killed him. Basically, you got a pole or a nail or whatever it was going through your brain. And he survived. Yeah, so he says the pole went through his frontal lobe. So he survived it, and he was a totally different person. And I think he became a huge asshole. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there are other ones like that. Yeah, so he became just a huge dick. Very mean. And he wasn't like that before this happened. He was totally, watch says rage loss, fits of rage and loss of emotional control. There are other ones where people, like lose a whole section of their brain. I think we've talked about some of this before, where they lose a whole section of their brain and they have all these memories are gone, and then they return anomalously. And remember, your brain doesn't grow back if it's damaged, right? So how do memories come back if you've lost them due to massive head trauma?
Yeah, that.
I mean, this is part of the thing about.
I'm one of those people that I don't think memories are
stored in the brain,
necessarily stored with physical matter.
Right. Exactly. That's what the evidence points to.
Right.
And then, of course, there are people that just have almost no brain at all, and they're still functional.
But I've been like skirt derping myself on this whole idea of the, the physics and then the non-physical consciousness stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm just still trying to figure out like the good questions to ask.
Yeah.
About physics and that. So
right. We might get into some of that at the end of the show. We went on a what do we got? What's the time here?
Well, we're ready for a break. But
okay. We went on we told you guys the last podcast for Kyle's birthday, we go on treasure hunts, basically artifact sifting. We go somewhere and bring our screen and do some digs and try to find some arrowheads. And we were doing that, and I brought my little sampler recorder with us, and
I brought beers.
Kyle brought beers. And there was whiskey down there. So in the truck ride on the way down there, I just set up the sampler in between us, and we basically had our normal long drive car conversation with the recorder going. And we talked about this, and then we got down there, and we started drinking whiskey and beers and wine. And I set up the recorder. Now, we basically recorded about a 2-hour thing. And we got into some of these questions of like about consciousness and how to test for it and everything like that. So we might go into some of that at the end of the show. But first, I want to continue on the topic of the pyramids, which we will do after we take this
We
break.
got to talk about pyramids.
Yeah.
We can just publish that thing. We don't need to do it again. That's why I didn't go into detail.
Yeah. That's true. We could just publish it.
I just want to delete the part after I drank the full bottle of wine and was at my third beer. From there on out, we can maybe do that. We can send that to the private emails of the people who donate to our pyramid.
Yeah, if you guys want to hear Bots Late Night 2 with us, super hammered, flipping out about shit.
Yeah. If you're kind enough to donate to our podcast in our pyramid scheme, we'll be mean enough to send you that kind of stuff.
We will punish you for donating by sending you this drunk podcast we did. It's a great incentive to donate to our pyramid scheme. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and talk about pyramids.
Tongues we speak to annoy the Enlils of the world. Brothers of the Serpent podcast. In the Tangent Cube, a very small bubble.
A very small bubble.
A hibernation cave for snakes.
Yeah, the good thing we're not real snakes because we'd be hibernating all winter. There'd be no podcast.
That's why we have a heat lamp.
That's right. Oh, that's true. That's right.
It's kind of gets you warmed up.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a bunch of other details and information about the entire Gantenbrink store situation, the Great Pyramid, and we got questions from people asking about, later studies, like for instance, the scan pyramids stuff. So we're going to get into some of that, but first let's go. This is from Biblioteca Pleiades.net, which is a good site for all kinds. They just have all kinds of stuff. But this basically is just called it's their Gantenbrink's door web page. I don't think this one is. I think the latest stuff on this is 2002, but we have later stuff later. So anyway, what's behind the door? There is much speculation about what will be found behind the doors, and I'd like to take a moment to put the tower's online viewpoint. I'd appreciate any feedback or opinions you may have on it. Personally, I do not think that chambers of any description will be found when the outer blocking stones, however many there may be, are finally penetrated. For the sake of argument, let's assume that the Great Pyramid was replanned during its construction, that there was a time when the Queen's Chamber, so-called, was intended to be the main burial chamber. We know that the blocking stones in the northern and southern shafts are equidistant from the Queen's Chamber. Could they have been placed close to where the shafts would have exited on a smaller scale pyramid?
Already came up with that theory.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was cool, because you came up with that.
Was that an email?
No, this is from
the
website. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I just thought it was cool that you came up with it, and okay.
Very cool.
We have a tentative parallel for this if we examine the shafts leading from the King's Chamber. On the 12th of February, 1837, John Perring came across the mouth of the King's Chamber northern shaft on the north face of the Great Pyramid. Perring and his men set to work clearing the shaft. It actually turned out to be a forced passage with dimensions 3 feet by 2 feet 9 inches, which followed the actual channel, or shaft, for 37 feet, after which the channel continued on with the original dimensions of 9 by 9 or 8 by 8 inches. We have no idea who originally, this is the Man-Killer Tunnel. This is what Gantenbrink called the Man-Killer Tunnel. We have no idea who originally forced this passage from the north face or what obstacles were found. On the 21st of May, 1837, Perring found the mouth of the King's Chamber southern shaft in the same relative position on the south face of the pyramid, and once again, work began to clear the shaft. Not far in, so on this side, there is no tunnel, right? The southern shaft, King's Chamber shaft, exits, and there's no destruction to it by quote-unquote unknown plunderers, as Gantenbrink called them. Not far into the core masonry, Mr. Hill found a piece of iron blocking the way. So this is a famous iron plate that was found in the Great Pyramid that has sort of, people have speculated that this shows that whoever built the pyramid had iron, even though they're not supposed to have had any kind of iron tools or access to iron metal unless it was meteoritic or whatever. Let's see. From its position, it was not thought possible for it to have been placed there following the original construction of the pyramid. In other words,
after the original construction. Right. It had to be during.
Right. Having cleared this obstacle at a distance of 7 feet from the surface, Hill found the way blocked by a large stone. Once removed, we are told that air rushed into the King's Chamber. Could this have been a slab like those found in the Queen's Chamber shafts? Is it the case that we will eventually find iron plates and then nothing? We know that the Queen's Chamber shafts do not appear to have exits on the exterior of the pyramid. Do we know for sure that the King's Chamber shafts penetrated all the way through to the original polished exterior casings blocks or through them? Which is, no one knows if they, like, when the original casing stones were there, was it like I've always envisioned this, like this perfectly smooth, beautiful casing, and there's these little square holes on the north and south sides.
Right.
Like way up there that no one could see. Or were they closed off? No one knows. Right.
Well, the fact that they're not full of sand, or are they full of sand?
Well, they were, but they've had
they have been uncovered
years.
for so long. Yeah, I guess.
This hypothesis does have two flaws. Firstly, the height at which the Queen's Chamber shafts would have reached the exterior of the smaller pyramid would have been at roughly the same elevation as Campbell's chamber, which is the highest of the relieving chambers of the King's Chamber, right? The relieving chambers. Campbell's chamber is the one at the top. Is it likely
with the half cartouche?
Yeah, that one's below. Campbell's chamber is not the one that had it. Yeah. Is it likely that the builders would have continued to construct the Queen's Chamber shafts to their intended height if they knew that the pyramid was to be enlarged anyway? So we sort of went through this, like, this idea of, like, if these were something that was original for what the original plan was, and then they changed the plan, why would they have continued to build them?
Yeah.
And why were they blocked off but not really blocked off? Like, why didn't they, if they pulled a block out that had the shaft in it in the Queen's Chamber and then put a new one in, why did they still cut the shaft all the way through it right up to the very edge where it was just and left a few inches instead of just sticking a block in there and calling it done?
Right. It seems like the shaft needed to be almost all the way out on both ends.
Right.
So you had the casing stone that
closed it off.
That closed it off.
Yeah.
And the King's Chamber probably had the same, but for some reason they didn't close off the shafts in the King's Chamber.
Right.
Which is
and
weird.
I do think the question of whether the shafts exited the casing stones is a good one for multiple reasons. Like, number one, who did the casing? Is it the original builders?
Know.
Right.
But whoever did the casing of the Queen's Chamber didn't necessarily have to be the original builders of the Queen's Chamber either.
Right.
But the fact that they put casing stones on the exterior of the larger pyramid shows that, like, whoever did that must have known something about the smaller pyramid underneath. So it suggests that if those stones that are the same as the casing stones that are inside the Queen's Chamber shafts, whoever built the larger pyramid planned to put casing stones on them.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Well, otherwise, why would they use the same limestone? It seems like the builders would have known.
Right.
The builders of the larger pyramid would have known that the casing stones were on the smaller pyramid so that they copied it once they got to the full size. The other question I have about that is, if the smaller pyramid is a smaller pyramid and it did have casing stones on it, and they did not remove the casing stones to build the larger pyramid, then that is an incredible engineering feat.
I thought the same thing, because your whole new larger pyramid would want to slide off those casing stones.
Yeah,
There's nowhere to grab.
You no longer have this idea of, like, well, the whole thing is supporting.
Yeah.
Now you have this larger pyramid on the outside with this massive, heavy top.
Right.
Which is above the point of the smaller pyramid.
Yeah.
That's going to be trying to crush those relatively speaking, thin walls between the smaller pyramid and the exterior of the large pyramid.
Yeah. Then there's the possibility that it was a step pyramid, that the smaller version was a step pyramid.
Yep.
Now, if you go look at that, I think it's in Mayun. Watch or check me on this. Mayun, Mayun, I think is how it's spelled. But there's a pyramid, but basically the whole exterior sheathing has fallen off of it. Then it was a triangular pyramid. It fell off of it, and there's this Babel Tower thing left.
Yeah.
It'd have been something like that, where the original construction, the smaller construction or whatever that had the Queen's Chamber or whatever, was not a pyramid at all, but some kind of tower that did actually go all the way to the top, and they've built this triangle over top of it.
But it's interesting that the Queen's shafts go out to these specific distances, which kind of, you can draw lines and say, well, okay, there could
I guess what I'm implying is that maybe all of the interior structures that we know of, all the interior structures that we know about now, were were able to fit in this original tower style construction like you see of the Mayan pyramid. Because it's tall, right? The thing is tall. It's just not a pyramid. It's like think of a ziggurat, but then stretch it out in the height direction.
Yeah.
Right. It's like 3 steps, and it's very tall.
Right. So first they built the most difficult thing to build out of stone, and then they covered it with the easiest thing to build out of stone.
Yeah.
And that's the most difficult way to build the easiest thing out of stone.
Right. That's right.
Dang it! No matter how you look at it, pyramids are hard.
Okay. Is it likely that the builders would have continued to construct the Queen's Chamber shafts to their intended height if they knew that the pyramid was to be enlarged anyway? Then there again, it is possible to hypothesize that the pyramid was not actually constructed level by level, and that the shafts were essentially complete when the decision was taken to extend the pyramid. Secondly, Rudolf Gantenbrink discounts the idea that niches discovered in the upper reaches of the southern King's Chamber shaft could have held a blocking stone similar to that found in the Queen's Chamber southern shaft. See the item Cheops niches on the cyber drawings page. Yeah, okay. We shall never know if there was a similar niche in the upper reaches of the northern King's Chamber shaft because it would have been destroyed by the force tunnel found by pairing. However, when you look at Gantenbrink's website, he says that the top and the right side of the shaft did survive. Okay, was it medium, not Mayan? Pyramid at medium is the one that is like a tower where the exterior thing collapsed. Or Midum, yeah. Medium? Midum. Cool.
Yeah, that's your dumb.
I'm dumb.
Sorry.
Yeah. So he says that there are no niches on the wall that does survive the tunnel cutting, right? So the man killer tunnel that he called it, the one that Paring found, the top and the right side of the shaft. If you're standing on the pyramid looking down at the shaft, the top and the right side, or whatever, survive or maybe it's the top and the left side. I don't know which side the shaft's on. But anyway, whoever dug the tunnel dug it alongside the shaft. So 2 sides of the shaft still exist, and they were able to take measurements of angles. And he said that similar niches were not there in the place where they should have been if they were in that shaft as well as the other one. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Okay, so introduction to Gantenbrink articles. The Queen's Chamber air shaft investigation and Great Pyramid ventilation scheme items below first appeared here in 1998. They were written using information supplied by Rudolf Gantenbrink and published with his kind permission. They reflect his views on the situation subsequent to his exploration of the shafts in the Great Pyramid and are retained here as historical background information. Please note that the, quote, air shaft, unquote, and the, quote, ventilation scheme, unquote, items must be read in the context of the situation back in 1998. The first section highlights disagreements with statements made by Dr. Hawass at the time regarding further investigation of the air shaft door. The second section provides an insight to the state of the ventilation system installed in 1992. Okay, so Queen's Chamber air shaft investigation. Rudolph issued the following statement in April of 1998. The word recent in the first sentence must be taken in that context. The statement was as follows. In a recent meeting between Dr. Zahi Hawass and myself in Cairo, I explained to Dr. Hawass several details related to the so-called air shafts inside the Cheops pyramid. One of the issues discussed with Dr. Hawass was reported on an interview from theguardian.net. Dr. Hawass, we are not discovering anything in the Great Pyramid. There is nothing really remaining to be discovered inside.
Fool!
Even though we were prepared to investigate the so-called door inside the pyramid that was found by Gantenbrink, we found that in Gantenbrink's report where he recently visited me, looking more closely at the videotape, we see that there really is no crack or an open area that we can send a robot. We found that there is no shaft or small area underneath this stone to send a small robot or anything, and this means that we are not going to be able to investigate and see what's behind it. So the Guardian asks, there's no crack at the bottom of the slab found by the robot at the end of the shaft that would allow even a small camera? Dr. Hawass says, there's no crack on the bottom, exactly. This is what the media created, and I never received a proper report from Gantenbrink because of the problems that we had with him. But when I met him last week and when he showed me the videos here, what it looks like in there, we did not really see any crack in the fitting, and therefore it is very difficult to decide to do anything further with this. So Gantenbrink says, this interview has and might further lead to misunderstandings. For this reason, I would like to clarify the following. I had a meeting with Dr. Hawass in March of this year in Cairo. The reason for this meeting was to inform Dr. Hawass personally about additional, still unpublished facts and observations made during my work in 1992 and 1993 on the so-called air shafts. In this meeting, I have pointed out that a further investigation of the closure stone at the end of the southern lower shaft by means of a fiber optic cable has little chance to achieve the expected results. This is due to tremendous costs and the poor results due to light source limitations that can be expected in the worst case. The fiber optic procedure has never been suggested by myself and therefore is indeed a true media creation. Nevertheless, in that meeting, I have informed Dr. Hawass equally about a far better high-tech method for a possible continuation of exploration. I do not at all agree with Dr. Hawass's statement that was probably intended differently, that there is nothing really remaining to be discovered inside. It is and remains a fact that only further research will allow this conclusion to be drawn. I am convinced that Dr. Hawass, especially after our meeting, also sees the immediate need to solve the questions that my work from 1992 and 1993 raised. When this item first appeared on the Usenet, clarification was requested on what the, quote, far better high-tech methods, unquote, were. Rudolph replied as follows: "It is a bit complicated. One of the procedures works by injecting a specified quantity of gas through the gap below the door by means of capillary stainless steel tubes, one for injection and one for the analysis. If there is a purpose-built volume, which is expected to be relatively tight, we will get a certain gas concentration after some time in relation to the volume that we can measure. So we can determine the size of the volume as well. If there is just the nucleus behind that, which is like open joints, the gas will just decrease in concentration progressively. The equipment for the procedure is worth about $2 million and can be purchased from one of my sponsors, free of costs, basically. Another procedure, I am very much convinced that we only see the backside of the door. If an engineer is supposed to fix something on a stone slab without glue and anchors, he would do the following. 1, the thing that has to be fixed has 2 bolts fixed to it. 2, the bolts are inserted into 2 holes which are drilled through the slab so that they penetrate the slab through the backside for some centimeters. 3, now the bolts can be bent 90 degrees to fix the whole arrangement safely. So what we see from the backside are only the bent bolts, and that is exactly what we see on this door. To find out if this really is the case, the robot can put a current to one of the copper bolts. If this current can be measured at the other bolt and we have a closed circuit, we know that the main part, and so the functional one of the door, is located on the other side. There are many more procedures, so to take the 2 above are just examples."
Yeah. That's
So
great.
on his website, on a section called The Future, he details with graphics his idea for the gas test, which obviously was never carried out. They ended up drilling a hole through one of them and sticking a camera with a light through it.
Yeah.
Okay. And they did find an open space behind it, but it was very small. And some short distance away was just another block, and it was a rough stone.
Yeah.
Supposedly, this is what they found. Because it's Hawass, I have and also because no other details were released. Like, so they they took this other robot and they ran it up the northern Queen's Chamber shaft that Gantenbrink was not able to get his to go all the way up, the one that has Dixon's rod in it. They ran it all the way up with a newer robot, 10 years newer or whatever. They ran it up that shaft and found another quote-unquote door at the end of that one. Okay. I don't know which door they drilled a hole in. I don't know if it was the northern or the southern side, but one of them they drilled through with that same robot. But unlike Gantenbrink, which he releases every detail in all these CAD drawings on his website of his entire study, no real details were released on this other one.
Yeah, just like Hawass didn't release the press release with all the details.
Right.
You know?
Okay. So, why the delay in probing beyond the door? Rudolph was often asked, why doesn't the work continue? The following section contains his response. Once again, it is important to read it bearing in mind that it reflects the situation in 1998. Several years had passed since the door had been discovered, yet to the outside world it seemed that there was little interest from the Egyptian authorities in finding out what lay beyond it. Okay, the nature of the find. 1. Can the nature of the find be determined safely? The result of the find is purely based on visual data. This data only has 2 dimensions in space. There are no parallels to this find. No ancient texts are known describing this arrangement. There are no known ancient objects that can be compared in detail with the details of the find. The answer, therefore, is no. 2. Do all directly involved parties have all available information? The digitally prepared visual data collected during the investigation showing details and evidence of Egyptological value was never evaluated by any Egyptologist. No request was ever put forward to obtain such data, nor was any interest shown to take part in the process of digital evaluation. The answer, therefore, is no. In other words, no Egyptologist ever, at least as of 1998, no quote-unquote authoritative Egyptologist ever even requested to
Look at all the
data.
Yeah.
They're not interested. 3, are there any theories that can be backed by evidence about the nature of the find? Due to the points 1 and 2, there is no solid academic basis for any credible theory. The answer, therefore, is no. The need for further investigation. 4, can further research not be useful? There is still very little known about Old Kingdom pharaonic burials.
Right.
Yeah.
None.
Mainly because they keep expecting to find them in pyramids, and they're not there.
Yeah.
These so-called air shafts of the Great Pyramid appear to be closely related to such a pharaonic burial and ancient beliefs. The shafts had been misinterpreted as being only a few meters long and abandoned for nearly 1 century, so proving that interpretation cannot replace complete investigation. The northern shaft is not yet completely explored and remains largely as a still totally unknown area. Remember, again, this is 1998. This shaft could possibly hide evidence which would allow the whole nature of the find to be understood, but the answer still is therefore no. 5, is a further investigation only of minor importance. We are dealing with one of the most important and highly exposed monuments in history. There is huge public interest in further investigation. Due to this, in point 4, the investigation has major importance. So the answer is therefore no. It is not only of minor importance.
Right.
Feasibility. Are there technical problems in resuming further investigations? Remember, the questions are ones that Rudolph was asked. He's the one answering all these. Okay. So the answer, the robot Upout 2 is modified and tested for the exploration of the northern shaft of the Queen's Chamber and has been for more than 4 years. Additional plugins for remote sensing, probe collecting, and surveying have also been present for more than 4 years. Remote analyzing equipment was engineered 3 years ago and has been available for more than 2 years. The answer, therefore, is no. There are no further technical problems that he knew of. 7, are there financial problems in resuming further investigation? No. I don't read all the details on that. No, there weren't. 8, are there manpower problems in resuming further investigation? No. More details, but no. 9, are there political problems in resuming further investigation? The robot Upout 2 is now housed at the British Museum in London and has been offered for further exploration to the Egyptian SCA, Supreme Council of Antiquities. The robot is already modified to be able to explore the northern shaft, which is the one that he couldn't get all the way up. Mm-hmm. The training of a person to maneuver the robot was equally offered to the SCA. Due to this, the SCA can resume the work without the involvement of any other nation. The answer is therefore no. Conclusion, the resuming of this expedition has been easily feasible for over 4 years at this point in time when this is being written. Summary of conclusions, the nature of the find cannot be determined. Further investigation is scientifically needed, and the resuming of the expedition has been easily feasible for 4 years. This pragmatic analysis has been forgotten about in the world of Egyptology. Downplaying ignorance, academic shyness, and common belief has replaced the process of science. This is a scandal.
Yep. Thank you, Zahi Hawass. You asshole.
So further on this page, there is a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't even know about. Apparently, they completely screwed up the whole ventilation scheme that Rudolph set up. He offered several times to come out there and fix the problems that they caused with it. They refused him to come fix it. And at least as of the writing in 2002, the ventilation system still doesn't work properly.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
So it's getting damp in there.
Yeah, they screwed it up. They turned things off. They broke some stuff, and they wouldn't let him come fix it. And he said he would come out there and he could, in 2 days, repair the system, and they never let him do it. And the system, at least as of 2002, was still broken. Okay, so now I want to go to the Daily Grail, because Greg at the Daily Grail was in email communication with Gantenbrink during this stuff, and he has some good insights into it. So he has an article on here called The Return of the Jedi. Right? Return of the Jedi. The Jed Pillar.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure, remember, this is dailygrail.com. This is a fantastic website. I'm sure you remember how just 18 short years ago, a German engineer named Rudolf Gantenbrink sent his robot Upout 2 up the so-called air shafts in the Great Pyramid of Khufu and discovered a quote-unquote door blocking the southern passage from the Queen's Chamber. Well, it seems that things are progressing quickly, and the Egyptian authorities, led by Dr. Zahi Hawass, are already investigating them further. In a recent blog entry on his website, the Big Z informs us of the Jedi team, may the force be with him, currently working in the Great Pyramid. Zahi Hawass says, recently I went to visit the Great Pyramid of Khufu and observed the work of the Jetty team. Jetty is a joint international Egyptian mission, which I named after Jetty the magician, who Khufu consulted when planning the layout of his pyramid. The purpose of this project is to send a robotic tunnel explorer into the 2 air shafts that lead from the Queen's Chamber of the Great Pyramid of Khufu to gather evidence to determine the purpose of these shafts. I selected the Jetty team during a competition that I coordinated to pick the best possible robot to explore the shafts in the Great Pyramid. I decided on a team sponsored by Leeds University and supported by Dassault Systems in France. With the help of the Jetty team, we hope to uncover the meaning of these air shafts by drilling through the doors that are blocking them. The team has been made to The team has something made to previous examinations of the air shafts in December of 2009. The team is hoping to gather as much evidence as possible to try to piece together the purpose of the air shafts, while at the same time ensuring that the Great Pyramid is not damaged in any way.
They have made 2 previous examinations, probably.
Yeah.
The number 2. Anyway.
Or made previous. Yeah, that's what it is. Made 2, right? Instead of, okay. It's a provocative expedition title, to say the least, despite constantly berating the quote-unquote pyramidiates out there for their speculations about the Great Pyramid. It seems one of Zahi's pet theories is lifted straight from the pages of Bavall and Gilbert's The Orion Mystery, namely the story in the Westcar Papyrus, which tells, am I saying that right? Papyrus?
Papyrus.
The Westcar Papyrus, which tells that Khufu consulted the magician Jetty regarding the secret chambers of Thoth. Here, Zahi's hypothesis about the story of Jetty and the Gantenbrink doors. So Zahi says, I would like to suggest that these doors hide Khufu's real burial chamber, and the bending in the north shaft was there to avoid the Grand Gallery. This means that the 2 shafts were carved after the construction of the Great Pyramid. We know that the ancient Egyptians tried very hard to hide the tombs by blocking the burial chambers with huge blocks or making the pyramid entrance so narrow that no one could enter. They also wrote curse inscriptions to try to stop anyone who wanted to enter and disturb the tombs of the pharaohs.
Where?
About 900 years after the reign of Khufu, we have a story called Khufu and the Magician. It tells the story of how Khufu brought the magician Jetty to ask him about the secret documents of the god Thoth, or Tahoti, the god of wisdom, so he could design his pyramid. Jetty knew everything about the secret chambers, but he did not reveal the secret. I therefore believe that the burial chambers were hidden behind these doors. Some great logic there, Zahi. For those interested in the original story about the discovery of the doors, make sure you head to cheops.org, a presentation of all of Gantenbrink's exploration and data, including interactive CAD presentations of the internal structure of the GP. Rudolph had his own theory about what may lie beyond the door, which is not mine to share. In fact, we had a great email discussion back in the day about a lot of the construction of the Great Pyramid, which I unfortunately lost in a hard drive crash in the days before I realized how valuable backups were. At least it finally looks like after almost 2 decades we have people working in the pyramid, as we've previously found that Zahi has talked this up plenty over the years with no action eventuating. Right. Some of the comments in here are hilarious. One guy says, if Zahi were a filmmaker, the credits would roll. A Zahi Hawass film, starring Zahi Hawass, directed by Zahi Hawass, produced by Zahi Hawass, cinematography by Zahi Hawass, gaffer, Zahi Hawass, catering by Zahi Hawass, etc.
Yeah. I can't stand that guy, man. God.
That was a comment by Rick MG. Okay, so next one, scientist. Scientists find suspected chamber hidden within the Great Pyramid. So this is also the Daily Grail, a much more recent article. The Great Pyramid of Giza remains one of the most impressive and enigmatic monuments ever built by human hands, despite being constructed at least 4,500 years ago. And the mystery that has surrounded the building through the millennia has led many to search the building for hidden chambers, hoping to discover treasure or esoteric secrets. In the last couple of decades, there has been much focus on the so-called ventilation shafts of the Queen's Chamber that, when explored with a robot by Rudolf Gantenbrink in the early 1990s, were found to have quote-unquote doors at the end of them. But in the last couple of years, a new exploration effort has offered a new way forward. The Scan Pyramids project has employed various high-tech, non-destructive methods, such as infrared thermography and muons radiography, to literally scan the Great Pyramid for cavities. And today, the Scan Pyramids, along with assisting institutions, are announcing a big find, both in terms of its news value and also the actual size of the discovery. In a paper in Nature, researchers have reported the discovery of a, quote, large void, unquote, at least 30 meters or 100 feet in length, above the Grand Gallery, a find which constitutes the first major inner structure found in the Great Pyramid since the 19th century. The void, unimaginably named the Scan Pyramid's Big Void, was first observed with nuclear emulsion films installed in the Queen's Chamber by Nagoya University and then reconfirmed using other methods by other institutions. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that either.
Yeah, that they...
Because after they did it the first time, everybody was like, skirp derp. I didn't know it was reconfirmed by other institutions.
According to the paper abstract, it says, this large void has therefore been detected with high confidence by 3 different muon detection technologies and 3 independent analyses. These results constitute a breakthrough for the understanding of Khufu's pyramid and its internal structure.
That was the other thing, too. That they freaking skirp derped the analysis of the findings.
Yeah.
So then they got 3 independent ones that also found the same. You know, that's cool.
While there is currently no information about the role of this void, these findings show how modern particle physics can shed new light on the world's archaeological heritages.
But what if it was a soul chamber, man? Soul chambers don't interact with physics.
Maybe souls do interact with muons. You don't know.
Yeah.
The researchers are being cautious not to call this a secret chamber, though that appears to be what they privately think it is. In a press conference today, researcher Medhi Tayyubi, who let the news of the discovery slip a few months ago, stated that the team was avoiding the word chamber. We know that it's a big void, but we're not calling it a chamber.
Yeah.
We know it's a void, but we're not calling this chamber a chamber.
Yeah, that's right.
But Tayyubi also noted that when you know the pyramids and the perfection of the pyramids, it is hard to imagine that this is an accident.
Yeah.
Interestingly, along with the discovery of the big void comes news that the research team has also confirmed a previous discovery of a void above the northern entrance gate. Could this be a secret passageway that leads to this big void above the Grand Gallery?
Yes. Yes.
Below is a video from the Scan Pyramids project that details the latest findings, including both the big void and the northern secret passageway, and I will link to this in the show notes.
So, I figured it out, man.
Hold on. Almost done here. So what comes next? Assisting the Scan Pyramids team is Jean-Baptiste Mouret of the ISIR Robotics Institute in France, who said details would be released next week of a small flying robot that could fit within a 1-inch wide hole to explore the void. Obviously, however, allowing drilling in the Great Pyramid is a sensitive matter and would require permission from the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities.
Thank God it's not Zahi Hawass anymore.
They've certainly got my interest. So, I tried to pull up Gantenbrink's CAD because I wanted to compare it to the Scan Pyramids drawings of what they found. Mm-hmm. And I was unable to make his CAD drawings on the website work. I used to be able to make them work. So
it's conspiracy, man.
If any of you listeners out there are able to make the CAD drawings work, please send us screenshots of what you're able to see. I want to see the cyber drawings of the Cheops shafts. Basically, if you go into his website, you get to the cyber drawings part. If you can pull up the CAD drawings, it should open up a JavaScript window, and you can see the CAD of all the data, including the displacements and other things that are in there. It's all together, and when you get a screenshot, that would be fantastic because I would like to compare it to the Scan Pyramids data.
Yeah.
But looking at Gantenbrink's non-CAD drawings of what he, like, doesn't have all the minute details in it, but he has drawings on there showing you where the door on the southern side was found. It's relatively close to the outside of the pyramid, so it's hard to imagine that there's a large chamber there. I mean, it would be large, relatively speaking, but I'm not sure, but the door found on the northern shaft would probably exit directly into the void found by Scan Pyramids, as far as I can tell without looking at the CAD. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to take another break, and we'll come back and continue on this topic.
is that? You just blew my mind, man.